A very good evening to you. It's Monday, the 26th of April, 2010. This is Prime TV News. I'm Sasanka Das. First, we take a look at the top stories. President Rajapaksa receives a rousing welcome on his arrival in Bhutan for the SAARC summit. New ministers assume duties to accelerate the development of the country. A special committee will decide on filling vacancies of Freedom Alliance provincial councillors. Former UNP MP Myron Mustafa is indicted in the High Court for bribing a parliamentarian. And in news overseas, an attempt on the life of President Barack Obama has been foiled. Moving on to news in detail, we start off with news here at home. President Rajapaksa, who arrived in Bhutan to participate in the SAARC summit, has been accorded a rousing welcome. President Rajapaksa currently holds the chairmanship of SAARC, which comprises 9 member countries, to participate in the 16th SAARC summit. Bhutanese Prime Minister Jigme Thinley was present at the airport to accord him a warm welcome. Amidst a military guard of honor, the president was taken in a motorcade, granting him the highest honors a state leader can be accorded. More than 1,000 school children lined the route with the Sri Lankan flag. A first round of bilateral discussions between the president and the Bhutanese Prime Minister was scheduled for this afternoon. The itinerary included a visit to the traditional museum in the capital, Thimphu. All attention is drawn to the Sri Lankan president, who joins in the summit as the state leader of South Asia who had succeeded in routing terrorism. The president is accompanied by First Lady Shiranti Rajapaksa, External Affairs Minister Professor G.L. Peiris, Parliamentarian Nama Rajapaksa and Attorney General Mohan Peiris. SAARC was launched in 1985. It is also marking its silver jubilee. As such, Bhutan has made arrangements to hold the summit on a grand scale. It is also a first major international conference to be organized in the history of that country. Minister for Economic Development Basil Rajapaksa has emphasized that his ministry is geared to steer the country towards development. Mr. Rajapaksa assumed office in his new ministry this morning amidst multi-religious observances. Members of the Mahasangha as well as the clergy of other religions showered blessings on the new minister to carry forward his duties successfully. Speaking on this occasion, Minister Rajapaksa said the main target of his ministry was to make a vital contribution to the massive task of making Sri Lanka the miracle of Asia, based on the Mahinda Chintana extended version. Many parliamentarians, ministry secretaries and senior government officials were among the large gathering present. They extended their wishes to the new minister. Pushpa Rajapaksa and officials of the Economic Development Ministry were also present. Several ministers of the new government assumed duties in their new portfolios today.
Susil Premajayantha took over duties as Minister of Petroleum Resources Development. He gave an assurance to work for economic development and the welfare of the people. It will be based on the Mahinda Chintana extended version. A.H.M. Fauzi assumed duties this morning as Minister for Disaster Management. His deputy W.B. Ekanayaka also assumed duties. Minister P.S. Senagamage also assumed office today. Taking over duties as Minister for Indigenous Medicine, he gave an assurance to do his maximum for the welfare of the indigenous system of medicine to mould a healthy society. Vimal Veeravansha assumed duties as Minister for Irrigation, Engineering Services, Housing and Common Amenities. The ministry is located at Setsiripaya. His deputy Lasantha Alagiyavanna also assumed office. National Heritage and Cultural Affairs Minister Pavitra Vaniarachi assumed office today. She referred to the major task vested in her ministry in the journey towards the development of the country. Minister for Labour Relations and Productivity Promotion Gamini Lokuge also assumed duties this morning. He took over the duties amidst religious observances. Another Deputy Minister who took over duties this morning was Nandimitra Ekanaika. He is the Deputy Minister for Higher Education.
The new Secretary to the Prime Minister as well as Ministry Secretaries have also assumed office. S. Amarasekara took over duties as the Prime Minister's Secretary. He has 40 years experience in the public administrative service and had been a Ministerial Secretary for 5 years. He assumed office as the 16th Secretary to the Prime Minister. W.B. Ganegala assumed office as Secretary to the Media Ministry. It is the 4th time that he has assumed office as Secretary to this ministry. A group including heads of media establishments was present when he assumed duties. Anura Sirivardhana took over duties as Secretary to the Minister of Cooperatives and Internal Trade. He assumed office at the ministry at Union Place. Mr. Sirivardhana, who served office as Chairman of the Independent Television Network, becomes the first media personality to assume duties as a Ministerial Secretary. Parliamentarians, senior government officials and many media personalities were present on this occasion. Bandula Dhahanayaka is the Secretary to the Indigenous Medicine Ministry. He had been in the public service for a long period. This is the first time that he has assumed office as a Ministerial Secretary. You're watching Prime TV News, still at home. A special committee will look into the filling of vacancies created in the provincial councils. Minister Maithripala Sirisena said that the committee comprises several senior Freedom Alliance members. It has been appointed on the instructions of the President. Minister Maithripala Sirisena said that many provincial councillors of the Freedom Alliance resigned to contest the recently concluded general election. As such, there are many vacancies in the provincial councils since a majority of them had been elected to Parliament. The President has appointed a committee to look into the appointment of suitable persons to fill these vacancies. The committee comprises senior parliamentarians of the Freedom Alliance. The committee is already working on making the necessary recommendations. The recommendations will be submitted to the President on his return after the SAARC summit. Thereafter, the appointments will be made to fill the vacancies. Moving on, former UNP parliamentarian Mayon Mustafa is indicted in the High Court. He is accused of bribing a parliamentarian to solicit his support to Sarath Fonseca during the presidential poll. The Attorney General making submissions in the High Court in Colombo said that Mr. Mustafa had given Jatika Nidahas Peramuna parliamentarian Muhammad Muzammil a sum of 4.3 million rupees soliciting his support for Sarath Fonseca at the presidential election. The Attorney General said it amounts to a violation of the Presidential Election Act. Accordingly, he was being indicted under this act. 21 witnesses have been cited. In addition, a videotape, an audio tape and a report on telephone calls have been produced in courts. Secretary to the Ministry of Media and Information W.B. Ganegala is appointed as acting chairman of ITN. The President has made this appointment. Sri Lanka's dairy sector is improving with strong competition among processors, expanding the demand for milk and helping farmers. This is Prime Business. USAID has boosted the sector by partnering with a private company to increase milk production. A USAID study shows that there is strong competition among dairy processing companies, which is helping to expand milk collection routes from rural areas. A USAID statement said, "This is good news. The increased demand in certain regions is leading to greater development and investment opportunities for dairy farmers." The study also helped identify the areas for dairy market improvements and the obstacles that need to be addressed. USAID said small farmers have traditionally cared for a few head of cattle, sans the benefit of special feed, veterinary care or good breeding. The local breed of dairy cow typically only yields between 1 to 2 liters of milk a day, which could be substantially increased with a concerted effort from the public and private sector. The USAID said its study shows that there has been substantial progress in the dairy sector and small farmers in Sri Lanka's former northeastern conflict zones are benefiting. The European Union says that Sri Lanka can again enjoy the GSP Plus facility. The present government is following a well-planned program to effect accelerated development to the Sri Lankan economy. Accordingly, the European Union is of the view that it can receive the GSP facility without any obstructions. It pointed out that the decision by the European Union to suspend the facility can be reversed. At the news conference in Kandy, EU Ambassador Bernard Savage pledged more assistance from the European Union to Sri Lanka for the development of villages in the north.